The Colosseum is the main symbol of ancient Rome, but today its arches are half destroyed. Few people realize that it was once intact, snow white and covered in marble. All that remains is a skeleton of concrete and brick that has survived antiquity. Let's look step by step at how half of the world's most famous amphitheater disappeared. The Colosseum suffered its first serious blow in the year 442, when the upper tiers collapsed. The stone blocks cracked, and part of the facade fell onto the arena. The second powerful earthquake occurred in the year 847 and destroyed the southern wall. That is why the Colosseum became asymmetrical, as we see it today. The southern side stood on softer soil, which suffered more from the tremors. After the disaster, no one restored the amphitheater. Rome was already a different city. The imperial power had disappeared, and new rulers saw no reason for reconstruction. The ruined marble blocks were simply left lying around. Rain and wind over centuries washed away the lime mortar between the stones. Many facade details weakened and lost stability year after year. Then the Colosseum became a convenient quarry right in the city center. Romans began taking blocks, columns, and fragments for their homes. Natural destruction gave way to human dismantling. Thus, nature opened the path to the deliberate destruction of the monument. After the 10th century, the amphitheater looked half ruined. From a center of entertainment, it turned into a pile of building materials. Records show that residents took stones from it without considering it vandalism. Nature only weakened the structure. People completed what it had begun. That is how most of the southern side of the Colosseum disappeared. But the greatest losses were still ahead. In the Middle Ages, Rome was being actively rebuilt, and there was not enough stone. The Colosseum became an ideal source of quality marble and limestone. Church and secular authorities allowed its materials to be used for new buildings. Marble from the facades went into the construction of St. Peter's Basilica. Part of the arches was dismantled for the Barberini Palace. Fragments of columns were found in the walls of hundreds of Roman churches. No one regarded the Colosseum as a historical treasure, it was merely a resource. Romans called it a stone mine, not a monument. From the 18th century, documents survive detailing dozens of official permits for dismantling. Sometimes entire arches were destroyed to extract bronze clamps between the blocks. These were melted down and sold, since metal was expensive. Thus the Colosseum lost not only its cladding but also its structural strength. When the outer slabs were removed, the inner concrete began to crumble. This accelerated the decay of the remaining parts. Architects of later centuries understood the damage, but it was too late. By the 18th century, almost no marble remained. The Colosseum lost its white brilliance, turning gray and rough. Elegant reliefs and cornices disappeared completely. What we see today is the skeleton of the amphitheater after centuries of dismantling. Only then did the first ideas of preservation appear. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the amphitheater came to be seen differently. It began to be regarded as a sacred place. In the 11th century, part of the rooms was converted into housing and workshops. Shops, forges, and even small houses appeared inside. The Forum was no longer the center of the empire, and the Colosseum became a poor district. Thus, it deteriorated even more from within. Ceilings and walls were rebuilt for housing. Vaulted ceilings were broken to make new staircases. Dust, smoke, and humidity accelerated the corrosion of the stone. In the 12th century, aristocratic families even turned the Colosseum into a fortress. The Frascati family, and later the Barberini, reinforced it with towers. This caused additional breaches in the arches. After new earthquakes in the 14th century, half of the structure collapsed completely. Only in the 16th century was further dismantling forbidden. Pope Benedict XIV proclaimed the Colosseum a sacred relic. He ordered the dismantling to stop and strengthening to begin. But it was already impossible to restore what had been lost. By that time, half of the entire structure of the amphitheater had disappeared. In the 19th century, the first systematic archaeological studies of the Colosseum began. Scientists described the building's condition as critical. Many arches were on the verge of collapse, and the southern wall was severely weakened. In the 1820s, the first reinforcements with brick buttresses were carried out. They distorted the ancient appearance but stopped further collapses. Engineers restored separate passages and amphitheater steps. Marble was no longer returned, cement and iron were used instead. Gradually, the Colosseum became an open-air museum. It began to be cleared of vegetation and debris. In the 20th century, Italian restorers continued strengthening the walls. Metal supports hidden in the masonry were added. In the 1990s, large-scale conservation of arches and underground areas was carried out. Today, restoration continues constantly, but the goal is not to recreate lost forms. The task is to preserve what remains of the original. Research has shown that about 60% of the original material has been irretrievably lost. The southern side is almost completely destroyed, while the northern one survives thanks to concrete. Every meter requires constant monitoring of its condition. Modern technologies make it possible to stabilize the structure, but not to restore its first-century appearance. The Colosseum will never again be as it was under the emperors.